Today on Passion for Food, we're going to make one of the easiest holiday treats, this peppermint bark candy. This makes a really fun edible Christmas gift idea, stocking stuffer, or just all around lovely holiday candy. But there is one very important thing to keep in mind if we want to have these coming out in mint condition. And that is to pay very close attention to the chocolate that you're using. For the most part, I've found semi-sweet chocolate morsels to be fine for the base. We can see that does have cocoa butter in there, so that is legitimately chocolate. But on the other hand, when it comes to the white chips, you should be very, very suspicious. Check the ingredient label, and if we see palm kernel oil and palm oil instead of cocoa butter, that's not white chocolate, that's garbage. So for the white chocolate, I highly recommend using a nice quality bar chocolate instead. Or at the very least, one that actually contains cocoa butter. Otherwise, the texture and flavor of this is going to be all wrong. And here, let me actually show you what happens if you use those garbage white chips. See, it's not just that our layers aren't sticking together, the white is actually shearing off of itself, and it gets this weird, almost chalky texture once it starts to set back up again. It's really gross. Get yourself some proper white chocolate. Anyway, now that we've selected a good chocolate, let's go ahead and get melting over a double boiler. I like using the semi-sweet chips for this, but you could totally use milk or dark chocolate if you would like. We could also use the microwave for this, just cook on high for 30 seconds, stir, cook on high, stir, cook on high, etc. You get it, but I think the double boiler is probably a little more fun. One good tip here though for the double boiler is try and use basically the lowest heat setting you have. If you go too hot, you might wind up getting a little steamed when you accidentally scorch the bottom of your chocolate. Anyway, once we've reached chocolate melty perfection, we just want to go ahead and pour this out onto some parchment paper. The final size and shape here doesn't matter that much. We can just kind of go with the flow on this. Now, of course, we do want to get this spread out, and we have two main options. We can go thick or we can go thin. Now, me personally, I like mine relatively thin. You might ask yourself, hey, what does relatively thin mean? Well, that's a very good question. Anyway, let's go ahead and melt our white chocolate. Now, I have heard that you can get some white chips that actually do use real cocoa butter, but none of the 3 brands I had at my local store did. They were all that fake palm oil crap. And I actually have a theory as to why that is. You see, in America, to legally be called chocolate, a product must contain a certain amount of cocoa solids, and white chocolate by its very nature contains no cocoa solids, and thereby cannot legally be labeled as chocolate. So even if a manufacturer were to use the more expensive cocoa butter, they would still have to label it classic white, or white chips, or candy chips, or something like that. They still couldn't call it white chocolate. So I think they just look at that price difference, they look at the fact it's not going to affect their labeling, they shrug their shoulders and say, hey, enjoy your palm kernel oil, everybody. This might not be as much of an issue if you live outside of the United States, and I'm actually kind of curious about that, so let me know in the comments below. Are the white chocolate chips where you are made with cocoa butter or palm kernel oil? Anyway, once our technically not white chocolate is melty smooth, we just want to go ahead and carefully pour that over our chocolate base. And we want to be super gentle here because that chocolate base has only had about 10 or 15 minutes to start setting up. I don't recommend letting the first layer set completely before doing the second layer. That actually makes it more likely to come apart when you try and cut or break the candy. That said, it does make it a little more challenging when we're spreading out our white chocolate. Be careful, you can intermingle those layers really easily. And while this is still molten, we want to top with some crushed peppermint candy canes. There's no set amount here. Put as much or as little as you would like. I think this was about 5 canes worth. Now keep in mind, depending on your ambient room temperature, this could take a while to set. For me, it took about 4 hours. Once our peppermint bark is set, we've got a couple of options. You can just break it apart with your hands for those rustic little wedges, or if you want cleaner lines, you can just go ahead and cut it with a knife, which is what I opted for here. But that's it, folks. Our beautiful peppermint bark is ready to share and enjoy. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Passion for Food. If you have, give me a thumbs up below and don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so you don't miss our future recipes. And if you only take away one thing from this video, let it be avoid palm kernel oil in your chocolate. It's gross. And if you'd like to learn how to make some other amazing dishes, check out the recipes playing on the screen now. This has been Graham with Passion for Food.